Let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zephyr's Adjusted for Risk podcast from the shores of Lake Tahoe. Now, I have another great episode lined up for you today. Pro bono financial planning has grown in popularity recently, but not only due to the services that they benefit the end client, it also offers some benefits to the financial planning practices who are offering the services. Well, today I have on two perfect guests to talk about the benefits and business case for pro bono financial planning. But first, today's episode is sponsored by the award-winning Zephyr, which helps investment professionals make more informed investment decisions on behalf of their clients. I am honored and excited to welcome Jon Dauphiné and Hannah Moore on the show. Jon is the CEO of the Foundation for Financial Planning, or FFP, and Hannah is the founder and creator of Amplified Planning. Jon and Hannah, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's an honor to have you on, and I'm really excited about this conversation. Now, can each one of you tell us a little bit more about yourselves and your firm? Hannah, let's start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a practicing financial planner. I have a private practice in the Dallas area, but we also run Amplify Planning, which has really helped train aspiring and new talent coming into this space. We're best known for the externship, which started out of COVID when students were losing their internships. And it has just grown since then of really providing an entry point into the profession. And so a lot of my time and attention is how can we nurture and develop the talent coming into our space and really set them up for success.
Fantastic. And you, Jon?
Yeah, it's great to be here, Ryan. Thanks for having us. So I've been in this role as CEO of the Foundation for Financial Planning for 10 years now. And the organization is a nonprofit, a national nonprofit. It got started about 30 years ago. In fact, this is our 30th anniversary year, by just regular financial planners who realized that in their daily practices, they were helping only high net worth families, and they wanted to extend their talents and their time to people who are really struggling with money, and people who normally couldn't access objective fiduciary planning. And so this movement got started, and over time it's grown. And now, as I said, we're present in most every state. We make grants. We have a lot of nonprofit partners, and we help them develop programs. And then we also deploy many thousands of certified financial planners to be volunteers in these programs and help these underserved people. In addition to that, we do research, which we'll talk about a bit today, awareness, and really try to grow this as a movement. And I think about the legal field. I'm a lawyer by training, and what has been an honor for me in this role is to, go to a younger profession. Financial planning's only 50 odd years old, but already you see this amazing tradition of giving back through pro bono service, which I think is a hallmark of a true profession, and it's growing. And it has been really, really, one of the highlights of my career to be part of that movement.
Fantastic. Well, Jon, since you are a lawyer, I'll be careful what I say over the next 30 minutes. And both of you, Hannah and Jon, thank you. You guys are doing such great work for the industry. So I applaud both of you in that. Jon, the FFP, they recently made headlines, and you mentioned it about grants, about announcing a record $678,000 in grants to 23 nonprofit organizations for 2025. Can you please give us a little bit more information on that? And really, what is pro bono financial planning?
Yeah, sure. So we were happy to meet an internal record this year with the amount of grants that we awarded. And over the last 30 years, we've awarded well over 10.5 million in grants. And we've also activated more than 30,000 CFP professionals to be volunteers. And over this time, we've brought one-on-one financial planning and advice to almost 750,000 Americans. So it's really had this enormous impact over time, especially when you consider that it started from just some, financial planners who got together and said, hey, we want to make a difference. We're really proud of our grant making, but we also work with nonprofits that we can't perhaps afford to make grants to, and we allow them to post their opportunities to help their constituents on our website, probonoplannermatch.org. So that's another really major offering we have to connect interested financial planners to these individuals that need help in the community. So I definitely wanted to point that out. Pro bono, it's all about bringing service to people who tend to be moderate to lower income. And so, as you can guess, it's a little bit different than the services you might provide to your paid clients. And our research has shown that among the top three needs of this population is cash flow, management and budgeting, saving for an emergency expense, and managing consumer debt. So these are things that may be a little different than what, again, the advisor is doing in their paid practice, but they're not difficult for the advisor to do. And we hear again and again, like I was nervous, I was anxious about doing this, and then I started it and I found it was really easy. It was like helping out my neighbor's kid. It was like, talking to somebody at my church who needed some help. So we really do find that it is something that folks feel they can do and they're competent in. But the other thing I'll mention is it's a little different from a paid practice because it's typically short term. We don't expect volunteers to work with a client for decades or years. So it's usually 1 to 3 or 5 meetings tops. Occasionally, some of our programs go longer, a year perhaps, if they're very intense. So there's a lot of variety out there, but that tends to be the norm. And then you don't, as a planner, you don't have a duty to implement the plan or to monitor the plan. So it really is different in that regard. It's a lighter touch. It's not like you'll typically be using, Money Guide Pro and eMoney to do really comprehensive planning. It's more like helping them deal with just-in-time challenges and make better decisions and giving them knowledge they can use for the rest of their lives. So it has a huge impact, but it's not that heavy of a lift.
Fantastic, John. Great information. Hannah, so you help financial planners, you help train them to get into, help them with pro bono financial plan. How did you get started, or what was your decision process and saying, hey, this is what I want to do? There's a segment here, a business where I can help financial planners, help them, with pro bono financial plan. Where did it start?
Yeah, well, I think like so many planners, just wanting to help people is kind of how I got into this field. And we were, after I got started in my career, I saw so many of my friends who didn't last. And so we started a podcast and that just kind of grew and grew and grew. Until we're really working, with FPA and the pandemic hit. And again, that same desire of like, hey, how can we just help our community in this space? And that's how the externship got started. So you were talking earlier, I can't even tell you how happy it makes me as you're talking about pro bono that you have Jon here with the foundation and then you're bringing me in. And I think what's so cool for me and kind of how this is all coming together is we really have our fingers on the pulse of new planners coming into this space. And the thing that we hear over and over and over is that their number one desire, again, we have surveyed over 4,000 people on this. The consistent number one reason why people are getting into financial planning is to help people. And as we've done this externship, as we've talked with the people coming into this space and the new talent here, this continues to be a theme. And, just the act of doing financial planning, right? Like we are inherent, it's a helping profession. That's what we're doing. But I think the generation coming into this space is really focused. Pro bono is such a good way to be able for firms to be able to speak to that. And so I love just this natural synergy of the folks coming in, their natural inclination. And we have the data to show this, their natural inclination towards pro bono. And I think it's just a really, really neat kind of macro trend that we see in this space right now.
Awesome. Hannah, I'm really glad you brought up the survey. And Jon, you mentioned it earlier about doing research with FFP. Can you guys, start with you, Hannah. Was there any other highlights or findings from that survey that you thought were interesting, other than the number one reason was helping people and assisting them? What else did you find interesting?
Well, it was so interesting, and I can let Jon go into some of the details of it, but the foundation had done some really great work about surveying financial planners, right? And it's we kind of with amplified planning and where I stand is we are such it's such an interesting bridge between what is and what will be, right? Of what the field is versus what's coming in. When we look at the macro trends of this field, consistent top 5 issue, Schwab surveys, is attracting talent and retaining talent. This is a macro issue facing this field. And so anyway, Jon and the foundation had done some really great work of just surveying financial planners just to get their appetite on financial planning, of saying what is. And as Jon and I were talking, because Jon always comes on to talk about the foundation, we were like saying, hey, like, we know this is kind of the status quo, and we know people are already inclined towards pro bono, but what about the folks coming up? And so that's where Jon pitched the idea, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, I want to know more about this. And not to, I know Jon can talk about the specific numbers on it, but what we found is that the talent coming in is even more inclined to pro bono. Like, this is a big deal. If you're a firm owner listening to this podcast, it is a big deal that you're listening and tuned into pro bono, especially when we start talking about the talent that you're acquiring and how you retain that talent. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but Jon, I don't know if you want to talk anything more about that survey.
Yeah, well, first, thank you, Hannah, for letting us, sort of knock on your door and collaborate in such a terrific way, because we were able to get data that I think is seismic, for the industry to pay attention to, as you said. When we did our initial study of current CFP professionals, we noticed that the group that was under the age of 35 was even more passionate about pro bono issues and wanting to do pro bono, and wanting their employers to support them in that journey. So Hannah and I were talking, we thought, what about the new entrants, the people who are seeking to become certified financial planners, seeking to enter, whether they're students currently or career changers. And so we did this survey, and some of the findings I'll share with you, and really they were off the charts. One is about 10% of these folks are currently doing pro bono, often through a practicum at their school or a program, but about 90% said they wished their educational institution was giving them more resources and more content on how to do pro bono. So that was number one. But number two, and this really goes to the firms, and to Hannah's point, is that almost 85% said they would rather work at a firm with an encouraging policy on pro bono. And really, this goes not just to the fact that they want to be able to do it and they want to feel supported, but it's a badge of the firm's culture, right? That yes, dollars matter, profits matter, but what also matters is bringing this really important service to folks that are not just wealthy, right? So and by doing pro bono, you can extend that to members of the community that really otherwise wouldn't have access. So that was incredibly powerful. And about the same amount, 85%, wanted to see advice firms, financial advisory firms, become more like law firms in the level of support they're giving, especially to their younger, staff members who really, really want to do this work and who care about this work. And the last thing I'll say is, when we asked this group, do you think once you're certified, you will provide about at least 20 hours of pro bono service each year, because that's what the CFP board recommends currently? And 90% of them said yes, they intended to do that. So we are seeing in this group really enormously strong intent to perform pro bono, but also they care deeply about finding an employer that will support that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I can add some.
Yeah, go ahead, Hannah.
I was like, I can add, we're looking at, Jon's giving the numbers, the facts behind it. If I can add some more color of like the why behind it. And because this is what's so fascinating is, we ask survey questions, which are very quantifiable, like, the percentages Jon gave, but we're also asking non-quantifiable and listening to these stories, the quantitative kind of data behind this, or qualitative data behind this. And what we're finding is, yes, number one reason people are coming is to help people, right? Off the charts. It's like 90% of people helping people. The second one is their own personal interest in personal finance. And so what we're finding that people who are coming into this space, they've seen the power of financial planning, whether that be in their own life, whether they see how much it could help their brother-in-law or their neighbor or the person across the street. That's why they're coming into financial planning. That's the bridge that's getting them here. That's what's getting them into the CFP courses. And so then they're seeing, because it's very mission driven for so many of these folks, they're seeing this impact. And so So they're doing all of this work because they have inside of them this desire to help the people that they see on a day-to-day basis. And then they're getting into firms where the firm is a $5 million minimum, $1 million minimum. And this is not to say that firms need to change their business models. This is absolutely not that. But when you look at the motivation for somebody to come into this space and then the motivation to do work, like, yes, you get intrinsic motivation of helping somebody with lots of assets. Absolutely. And firms still need to speak to that core motivation of what brought somebody in. And that's why I think it's so brilliant, the work that the foundation is doing and how this can be such an easy win for firms as they're doing this, because firms can simply say, you have an hour or 2 hours a month to do pro bono, go to the foundation's website, and there you can find the places that you want to give back. The reason why you joined this field, go help the veterans, go help the single moms, go help the domestic, abuse survivors, like go do those things that brought you in here. And yes, we're still going to do, work with the, higher net worth clients, but giving that to folks who are coming into this space, like I talk to them, they come back to me and talk to me on a regular basis. And if you give an outlet for them, they're not going to be the folks that come to me talking about how they've lost their passion for financial planning. They don't see a future in their firm. They're not sure what they're doing. They're not sure if it's worth it. Like this is such an easy win for firms to be connecting their talent with the motivation of why they're in the field in the first place.
And, I have to say, Hannah, too, even for a firm that's self-interested, right? There is
Yes.
such a professional development opportunity in pro bono work. And that's another thing that in our previous research we did in 2023, when we surveyed about 1,200 CFP professionals, more than half of the group we surveyed agreed that they benefited in 15 different principal knowledge topics that are required by CFP board to be mastered for certification. So that was really, really high numbers of folks saying, I am bolstering my hard skills by doing pro bono. And then the other picture in the soft skill arena, about 2/3 or more say it improved their client communications and listening skills. It improved their ability to interact with a very diverse client base. And it also gave them new roles and new leadership skills. And that was particularly true for that younger group of planners under the age of 35. So what we're seeing is the firms benefit again, from when especially the younger associates are doing pro bono, and they're gaining that confidence, they're gaining that experience, and they're gaining that direct to client interaction, which often, and I can speak when I was an attorney, young associate at a big law firm, it's not like I got, direct client, or trial experience that first, week or month or year, but in doing pro bono, you can. And one of our board members, who's terrific, she said that they had hired a new advisor, brand new, very young, very nervous, and our trustee was worried that this person just wouldn't make it, just would not cut it. But they gave her some pro bono assignments, and she got so confident, and she really loved the impact she was making in a very direct way on this struggling family, that she transformed, and now she speaks out in meetings. She's very poised, very confident, and our trustee really attributes her experience doing pro bono service to her growth professionally in such a rapid period of time. So I would just say, not only is there like the kind of the moral imperative that I think is so fulfilling, especially for a lot of these new entrants to the profession, but also it does benefit the firm in terms of talent development.
Fantastic. You guys, this is such great information and a conversation. One of my takeaways here with pro bono work, and one thing I've seen in the industry, at Zephyr, we focus more on the investment management side, but across the industry is, and you mentioned it, Hannah, minimums are coming down. So like, for example, with separately managed accounts, and this is one thing that I really like about where the industry is heading, is inclusion. And you talked about it, Hannah. You don't need $500,000, $1 million to get a financial plan now. And like with separately managed accounts, you don't need $1 million or $2 million to access this investment vehicle. Minimums are coming down. So it's making these investment products that years ago you thought, I just don't have enough money for it. But now you can through work that you guys are doing, Hannah and John. So it's great. And Hannah, you talked a lot about, you know, kind of the business case too. Like, how does it benefit the financial advisor? Can you go into more about the
Yeah.
business case for incorporating pro bono work?
I mean, we've hit on some of this, that hiring talent, I promise you, your talent is looking to see if you're volunteering. Is this on your website? Is this an opportunity? You put that in your employee benefits package. They are going to key in on this, right? So having that, from an attracting talent, it is a big deal. I can't tell you the number of firms or like the number of new talent that I talk to who are not applying for these jobs that are out there because they don't feel like they get it. They don't feel like they get the helping people. It's just about making money. This is a great way to change the narrative about your firm. And I know some of these firms, and I know that they have really good hearts behind them. It's just how we're presenting ourselves, right? It's how are we communicating with folks. So I think it's attracting talent, the retaining talent. I think that's a big deal. Making it a culture they want to work in, right? And then also that skill development. And I was one of those people where I was like, do I have what it takes to do pro bono? I don't know. Like, does the CFP talk about this? Like, I don't, but when you just take a step back, and again, we've done our fair share of developing, like training and developing talent through a variety of different places. And, when we look at what are the actual skill sets of a financial planner, yes, we have all the knowledge topics that are there, right? We need to know the cash flow planning, planner biases. I mean, can you talk about a better way to go and like build your skills up and then doing pro bono on that? There's all of those pieces, but we also there's this whole, like, how do we engage with a client, right? A lot of our training, I tell people, like, what I bring to my clients is I think like a financial planner. I think through problems a certain way. I analyze them, right? I'm able to see the big picture and then get down in the weeds. I understand how the financial system works. I understand the ins and outs, and so many people don't. They discredit that, when I think that's such a huge benefit for folks who are doing this. I help my clients make decisions, right? That's what I do every day. I just had a meeting earlier today with a client. There's all these complex factors that are out there, and I'm helping them figure out what are the one or two things that they need to figure out and make a decision on to make the most informed decision for them going forward. Those are skills that you need practice, you need reps on. And yes, your new talent can get that in your firm, but they can get a lot of those reps outside of it. And those are all directly transferable skills. You're going to have a more competent, a more confident planner that's going to be able to move faster within your organization. From a talent development process, I'm not sure you can get more bang for your buck than just sending them to do pro bono. I mean, it really is such an opportunity for firms and new talent coming into this space.
And Hannah's, to build on what you're saying, firms don't have to start from scratch.
Yep.
We at the foundation have a kind of a pro bono 101 training. It's free, it's online. You can get a CE credit for it. And then we also do webinars, and we target specific topic areas that are relevant to a pro bono engagement, like learning more about social services and public benefits, or helping a client overcome money shame and stigma, various topics, consumer debt, how the credit counseling agencies work, how, some information even on personal bankruptcy, just to make sure that volunteers have an array of different educational choices that they may want to brush up on. So that's definitely something we offer. And then we have a program called REA Impact Partners. And there we work very intentionally with firms that want to deepen their employer brand as a cutting edge firm on pro bono. And we have firms of all sizes, from Edelman Financial Engines to, a small regional firm called Yeski Bowie, and many firms in between. And we're actually doing case studies on some of these firms and how they're operationalizing their pro bono. And we're going to be making these available publicly so we can have peer-to-peer learning among these firms, because I think that's a really, really important way, especially for firms to see this isn't, this is something that's going on right now. We can look at these policies, we can adopt some of these practices. And we are a resource for firms increasingly. Another thing that we're planning to do is have a list of firms that are supportive, that do have good policies in this area. And we're hoping to work with the registered programs and educational institutions that train financial planners to let them know what employers are out there that really do care about this and that have taken steps to support their advisors. The same has gone on in the legal field. And I can tell you almost every, young associate, young, law student looks at these resources just to try to get a sense of the firm and its culture and, what they're all about. And, do they have a partner that oversees pro bono? Do they devote a significant amount of hours to pro bono as a firm? How many partners are involved in it? How many associates? And while we certainly don't have anywhere near that level of data right now in financial advice, we think it is important to give this information to students and others that are interested in what the employers are doing. So that's on our on our docket for the future. But we heard in our survey that we did with Hannah that 75% of these folks who are entering the financial planning profession said they would find that really valuable and they would like a resource like that. So we have our marching orders. We just we have to get there.
Fantastic. Hannah, one question this industry we've made so much about, especially recently with being a fiduciary, right? The importance of being a fiduciary. And at Zephyr, we offer a very detailed risk questionnaire that can be customized and used so financial advisors can get a full understanding of their clients' investment objectives and to best offer suitable investments to their clients. But with pro bono work, that necessarily may not be needed. And how do you kind of balance that between a pro bono relationship that doesn't necessarily give you the level of knowledge about your clients versus being a full-on fiduciary with your paid clients? How does that work? And how does a financial advisor kind of switch between those two roles and do it seamlessly?
No, I love that question. And I think this is why I'm such a big fan of the foundation, because they make it so easy for you to volunteer and do everything. Because if you're volunteering, and John, correct me, you guys have an E&O policy. So if I volunteer through them, we have the errors and omissions insurance. So we have that liability protection on there, which I know is a big deal for financial planners. Again, they make it so easy to do. But when I think about the idea of fiduciary, I really go back to what is the core of it? It's help the best interest of our, not the best interest, putting our clients first, right? And I think we can do that. I don't think that fiduciary equals full comprehensive plan all the time. Fiduciary can be, I want to be able to help my client, help my pro bono client make the next best decision. And I think that is absolutely within the scope of that. I think it really comes down to what is the scope of the engagement. And, John mentions it like, just in time, financial planning. I'm a big believer. I dream of the day that financial planning is available to everyone in our country. Not that everyone's going to have an ongoing financial planner. I certainly have clients who fit that profile, but I know that not everyone's going to do that. But I know having a high quality conversation about somebody's finances at the right time in somebody's life will change their life. It will literally change the trajectory of their life. And that's what we're doing with pro bono. And yes, it looks different than my $5 million client. But for that person, that is life-changing advice. And for us, it can be so simple. And so I think it's, again, going back to that fiduciary question, is really just helping the client, meeting them where they are and helping them with what they need.
Yeah, Ryan, it's a great question. I second what Hannah said. These are limited scope engagements. So you're not ever expected to, get to know the client the way you would a paid client you've had for decades and, and have that level of knowledge. And because it's limited scope and often confined to, a limited set of challenges that the client is facing, then, it really is possible to offer. Look, we wouldn't do this if it wasn't a fiduciary standard, right? Yeah. Because CFP Board number 1 requires that, whether the client is paid or pro bono. And frankly, that's why we are very connected to the CFP professional as a volunteer, because of that ethical standard. And to Hannah's point, we do offer complimentary E&O liability insurance coverage to every CFP professional that links up to an opportunity through our website with one of our nonprofit partners or one of our grantees. So we're really trying to give that peace of mind that, this is very, very low risk. In fact, in the 30 years we've been around as an organization, we've not been aware of a claim ever asserted on a pro bono engagement. So really, that's not to say there's absolutely no risk, but it really, really is a very low risk endeavor. But very impactful. And as Hannah said, I can't tell you how many stories. And actually, if you're interested, on our website, we have a lot of them. So you could always check them out, ffpprobono.org/impact. We have tons and tons of stories of real clients, real volunteer advisors, and the impact they have made. And it truly is, if you can get to somebody with just-in-time advice at a difficult period, you truly can change their lives, the trajectory of their lives. And also, it's like teaching a man to fish, right? Because the more those skills develop, the more that person can help their family members, their community members, in addition to themselves. So there's an amplification effect that I think is really, really extraordinary in this field.
Fantastic. I'm glad you brought up the CFP organization, because I just read something where CFP designations are really outnumbering like the CFA. I years ago miserably failed level 1 of the CFA, and now it's like that was really when it was popular. Now the CFP is just blowing by it. So I'm really glad you brought in how the CFP is working with the FFP and taking into consideration pro bono work. So fantastic. Hannah, real quickly, last question. What are some misconceptions of pro bono financial planning?
Oh, there's a good number. One is that it's going to be burdensome and that you're going to have to do a lot of outside work for it. It really can and is oftentimes, I don't want to say easy, but it's attainable, right? And so I think that's one. I think people need our advice, right? Like we talk about the way financial planners think, that's what we're bringing to it. I talk to so many planners who are like, I don't have anything to offer. But they do. And I think that's what, if I could share anything with them, is being like, no, you do. And the impact you can have truly with 1 hour of your time, helping the right person at the right time, it'll bring you to tears. I mean, like, that's the level of impact that we're talking about on this. And then the other piece is it feels complicated. I remember when I first started, I remember looking around for a nonprofit, like this was, 15 years ago. And I finally found one in Dallas that I could go volunteer. It took me months to find it. It doesn't have to be hard. What the work that Jon is doing at the Foundation for Financial Planning, like it is making it easy for you to, like, truly, you can go in there, take their hour-long class and be connected with somebody in a week or two. Like it's that impactful. So this is not something that has to be far off. This can be easy. It is attainable. And for your firms, I don't want to say it's plug and play, because I know there's always, extra things that go on for managing people, but it is about as a plug and play as you can get, with having just massive rewards.
Fantastic.
Yeah, our pro bono planner match, I just have to plug it again, .org. Any CFP can register for free and browse opportunities. At any given time, we have like maybe about 50 different ways to do this volunteer work at different organizations. And a lot of it's virtual. So you can do it right from the comfort of your own office or your own home. But it really, really makes a difference. So we do try to make it as easy as we can.
Jon and Hannah, thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you so much for all the work you're doing and advancing this industry and financial planning. It's fantastic. It was a great, fun conversation. I really enjoyed it. Hannah, where can our audience get more information about Amplified Planning?
Yes. If you go to amplifiedplanning.com, our big program is the externship, so /externship. If you are a firm looking to help train people, we have some resources for that as well. So be sure to be on the lookout for that.
Fantastic. And Jon, where can our audience get more information about FFP?
Yeah, our main website is ffpprobono.org. And there, folks can sign up for our monthly e-newsletter just to stay in the loop and learn more about our organization and our grants. But if you want to register and look for volunteer opportunities, we have another site called probonoplannermatch.org. And there's a lot of resources there for volunteers and a lot of different options for folks to get involved in this work. So I encourage folks to check that out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hannah and John. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of Zephyr's Adjusted for Risk podcast. You can watch all of our other episodes on the Zephyr YouTube channel. And lastly, please give us a follow on the Zephyr LinkedIn page to get more of our insights and watch other episodes of the Adjusted for Risk podcast. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your week.